Yes. Nancy DiNuccio.
So, thank you, Rep. Jello and members of the House Judiciary Committee. I'm here upon written invitation from Representative Dennis Canario. My name is Nancy DiNuccio, and although I have 20 years of experience as a substance abuse prevention specialist, I'm here testifying tonight as a private citizen. I'm here today also to support the concept of the Legislative Commission to study the regulated marijuana issue and come up with recommendations for this body a year from now. We need facts that take the emotion out of this argument. It should also not be predicated on the potential tax revenues. Both sides should be making recommendations based on similar data points, and I think a well-represented commission could look at this issue in its history in Rhode Island and examine findings from states that have already embarked on legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes. And I think that anybody would be open to looking at the makeup of that committee. So as you can imagine, I'm also here to testify against the concept of legalized marijuana. I've been actively working against the legalization of marijuana since the bill was first introduced and along with all the other work that I do. In my work, I deal with youth and families. I deal with schools and local businesses, and in advocating for these groups, in my heart, I can't recommend legalizing marijuana in Rhode Island. I keep going back to the argument that I've heard time after time after time that making marijuana legal will somehow protect our kids and that the black market will magically disappear. How do you suppose that's, is going to really happen? Rhode Island already has the negative distinction of maintaining a huge illegal cigarette market, one that skirts the state taxes, and unlike alcohol production, marijuana is easy to grow. And to think that the folks that are currently selling marijuana to whomever will buy it will all of a sudden stop their operation and direct their patrons to the pot shop down the street is somewhat unrealistic. I had an article come across my desk. I have about 10 that come across a day. But this one caught my eye, and it was called Marijuana, 15 Cities with the Most Pot Users. So, okay, let's take a look at that. And it had information. It was using data from SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration. And of those 15 cities and towns across the country, you can imagine that some of them were from states that have already legalized marijuana. But it was interesting I was surprised to see that in that list of 15, Rhode Island had 3. Number 8 was Warwick and East Greenwich. Number 6 was Newport and Bristol. And then number 3, where I live, Charleston, Narragansett, and South Kingstown. Number 3. And as far as I can see, we don't even have a legalized market at this point. And yet we have this notorious ranking. And is it something that we should be proud of? Is it something that we want to do and legalize this drug so that we can move up in the ranks? I'm not so sure. So I culled down a lot of the stuff that I was going to say since it's 9:30 or whatever. I've been here since 1 this afternoon. I was telling Rep. Tansey. And so many of the reports that are coming out of Colorado, Washington, and Oregon increased drug driving, increase poisonings from edibles, increase the black market activity, and increase youth use rate. We can go back and forth about what data set you're looking at, but this came out today. This is the Rocky Mountain HIDA report, and speaks about increased drug driving, increased poisonings, increased youth use. And it's something that I'm very concerned about as we start to think about legalizing marijuana. One of the other things that you should have gotten some written testimony was from a very noted speaker that I had hoped to bring in to speak to you, but she was unable to do that, so I had her submit her testimony to you. and that is from Dr. Bertha Madras. She is a psychobiologist that teaches at the Harvard Medical School, and she speaks a lot about the dangers of marijuana, not only for youth, but for everybody. So rather than to go on and on and on, I really hope that you consider the commission. I think that would be something that people that are on the fence could look at and say, what's the harm in delaying this another year so we can really look at the issues about that we'd really take into consideration, and they would come back and make a recommendation to this body, either yes or no. And I think then, a lot of this conversation that we've been having year after year after year would kind of be over. People, Jerry could be on it, I could be on it, whoever, the pros and cons of this issue could sit in the same room and, come to some consensus. So that's my testimony for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Representative Hagan McEntee has a question.
I want to thank Nancy for coming up today. I know she came from Narragansett. She does a great job down there with the schools and Partnership for Prevention. And I appreciate what you said in the end, the meeting of the minds from both the pro and the con. And I really do think that that's a place we have to find ourselves because, like you say, there's a lot of issues around marijuana, and we have to particularly take good care of our youth and make sure we keep it away from them. And I know I've heard from you before how it affects the brains of the youth much more than adults, and in a different way, and not in a good way. So I appreciate your testimony today, and thanks for
Thank you.
sticking it out.
Thanks a lot.